guys. Hi, everybody. I am Camille. I'm military medium. I am so happy to have Karen Weldy here today with us. And she is a dear friend of mine that I've known for several years now. And she is one of my favorite chaplains in the whole world. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am a chaplain. I am a chaplain at Trauma One Hospital. I work at night. So that means I'm the only chaplain on duty and I see everything. I go wherever I'm called. I see all the traumas that come in, which is
That's heavy
a
stuff.
lot. It's a lot. Yeah. And I have to work at ways of processing that. Because in a way, really, that is secondary trauma, me seeing all of that. And it's also a trauma to me. But I work with families where their loved one is dying or has died. I work with patients who are dying and are scared. I've worked in hospices.
Which
I
is
have
where we met.
Yes, definitely. And I've had a window into death that the average person doesn't have. And so my work with Camille has been awesome.
I love that you just called it a window. What'd you say? A window to death?
Yeah,
I
yeah,
love that.
yeah.
I love that.
And I've been with many, many people as they died. And that's a very, very unique setting. And I believe that that is holy ground. It is a very special time. And I want to talk about that a little bit later, just about that whole process of the dying.
Right? It's so sacred.
Very sacred. And the holiest of holies that we can stand on until it is our time.
Yeah.
It's the closest thing we come to death until it is our time. So we can learn a lot by that.
Yeah. And I've always believed in life after what we call death. I've always, well, why wouldn't I? I've been connected since birth.
Yeah, yeah.
But once I started working in hospice, that opened my eyes in a way that nothing else ever has. And actually, I think it made me, no, I know it did. It made me a better medium.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
sure.
And I've never experienced anything else like that. You know, that when you're there and you're present, when it's somebody's time to transition, it's such an honor to be there and to be with the families or to be with that person or to even feel, doesn't the atmosphere just start to crackle? And for me, of course, you know, in hospice, there's angels everywhere, what I'm seeing, but I've always felt like when somebody is right on the cusp and just about to take their next step, it just feels like the atmosphere is so charged and so alive. Yeah, it's so sacred. I mean, it's not, there's nothing, I'm not talking about anything that's physical, but that feeling that you get when that time is close, man, that gets me every time.
Well, I think part of what is happening is that we are in the spiritual realm.
Yes.
When someone is dying,
Yes.
if we're attuned to it,
Yes.
we have to be aware of it.
Yeah.
But also those of us who are more aware of it then can help the patient and the family know what is going on and I remember one specific time where the family, after the patient died, spoke to me about how meaningful it was that I explained all that to them. And then they were able to recognize different things that I don't think they would have had I not been there. And
Yes, we
talked about
bridge
it.
the gap.
Yeah, yeah, right.
Yeah. And you know, to be with people, like I was called in a few times, you know, to do Reiki.
Mhm.
And to see somebody go from agitated, you know,
Yes,
or to see families who are just knee deep in grief, to be able to go in and I don't know if it's the Reiki or just the fact that we're bringing the angels, you
yeah,
know, like
yeah,
we have an army of angels and we're coming in, you know, and we're going to provide peace. But to bringing chaplains into this, and even nurses and the doctors and, you know, and the social workers and anybody who's got this connection,
right.
you know, to be able to walk into that space and bridge that gap and let people know that, you know what, this is perfectly normal, that he's very agitated, but to be able to go in, and for me, the Reiki was a huge part. And just to be able to watch this person go from to calm.
Yeah, yeah, right, right.
And I remember one time, this just popped in my head. I remember one time standing outside of one of the rooms, because there was a gentleman inside who was very agitated. And I just started sending Reiki, but I started singing. Now, nobody really wants to hear Camille sing. No, no.
Nor Karen.
That is not my talent. That's not my wheelhouse. No. So I was singing quietly, but I really genuinely felt like he could hear me. And there was nobody else around him. And I know he's dying, you know. I mean, don't get me wrong, our nurses are checking on him constantly, you know, like
Right.
there's always somebody. But in that moment, he was in his room by himself. And so I just started singing, and I started singing, and he just completely calmed down. And then I remember the nurses going, "What did you do?"
What just happened?
Yeah, because they're like, the meds aren't working, you know, we got to up his meds, we, you know, whatever. And
Right.
I was like, give me a go. Let me try to help. And, you know, I mean, you don't work in hospice if you're not wanting to help somebody, you know,
Right.
or
Right.
at end of life. So,
Right.
but it was always special working with you and spending time with you. And
It has been a real treat.
and Karen and I have gotten together a couple of times outside of work too.
Yes. Yes.
So yeah, I I want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart, from the depths of my soul, for allowing me the honor of being with you, and for the way that you have supported me and my work. I mean, you know, I've had some difficulties with um, religious background family members that have said, no, I, you know, you, I can't, I can't endorse this. When it's really a shame, because there's so much healing that goes on. And I just feel like, you know, we're all here to do some form of work to help each other.
Right.
And so I don't know if I want to call this, I'm doing God's work. I'm not saying that, but I am saying that I'm doing good work.
Well, I think you are doing God's work. I think it's you are one of the people that I look to for spiritual guidance. And you know,
Hear
the
that?
background that I
My
come
chaplain just
from,
said that.
the background that I come from, a very, oh, how do I say it? A very closed religious background.
Yeah.
And fairly strict. And that would be so wrong for me to say that to a medium. So
I mean, I was raised that you don't even say the word.
yeah, yeah.
You know, it's like a fortune teller or
Yeah. Right.
oh, no.
Yeah.
I think I'm bringing all the light.
Right.
And
Yeah.
thank goodness we're making progress.
We
And
are. Yeah.
I think I've said it a bunch of times that I think in the past 10 years, we're actually moving towards being able to speak openly. I mean, we are now. I mean, to me, I'm like, well, forget it.
Yeah.
I'm out in the open now,
Right.
you know, but I think our culture is starting to embrace more spirituality. What do you think?
Oh, I would definitely agree. And I think more and more people are becoming they feel easier about spiritual things, talking about it, about being aware of spiritual things. You know, in my growing up, we didn't talk about spiritual anything really.
Imagine that, Karen. Like we
Yeah.
grew up in these religious environments where, I mean, in mine, it was, there is everlasting life. There is eternal life.
Yeah.
Well, you talk about that.
But then you don't talk about anything else about that.
Right. But then you deny its existence when somebody's going, oh yeah, by the way, your mom is still alive.
Yeah. And they get very upset at us for saying such a thing.
Yeah.
In fact, last night I was with a family. The patient died, and she said, oh, but I just wanted to say I love you one more time. And I said, you can still do that.
Yes.
He'll hear you.
He'll hear
Oh
you.
no, he's already in heaven.
Okay. All right. Here's one of our favorite things. You know where I'm going with this. I know you do.
Yes.
Okay. Heaven, you guys, heaven is not some faraway place.
Exactly.
No, it is not like and this is one of the griefs that I'm here to help heal.
Yes.
Is that heaven, and Karen and I talk about this, that heaven is not so far away that you will never hear from your loved one again. You will never see your loved one again. And the fact that we have got teachings that force us into this grief that we are completely and utterly separated is horrific to me. And it's a huge injustice. So heaven is not some faraway place. Heaven is only
3 feet away.
3 feet away, baby. I mean, it just gives you the feeling, the comfort that is ours to have anyway.
Yes.
That our loved ones are still with us.
They are nearby. And they send us messages in a whole variety of ways.
They send you really cool mediums, you know?
Yes, of course. And that really helps.
And dimes and pennies.
Yeah. After my first reading with you, I couldn't believe how much it changed my perspective of the world that comes next. However we call it. Right. I often call it the world that comes next.
I love that.
It's not it's not heaven as we've been taught.
Right. Not
in the
some faraway
sky.
place.
Up in the sky somewhere, and where streets are paved with gold, etc.
I mean, I wouldn't mind streets paved with gold, but
Right, but that's not, I don't think that's going to be reality.
that's physical.
Yeah, that's too physical. But anyway, I have been with so many people as they die that it's so amazing to know that heaven is so close by. And one of my professors in seminary told me, or told us, that the veil between the worlds is very thin when somebody is dying.
Right.
And that veil is shimmery, and it is iridescent, and
Beautiful.
it's like gossamer ribbon, or the wings of a dragonfly, that gossamer, the see-through-y sparkly thing.
Yeah.
And it's very it moves, and people who are dying can move back and forth between the worlds. And we see that in a patient supposedly not being, they look like they aren't there, is
Right.
what we often talk about.
Yep.
And I believe that they have moved across that veil, and they're with their loved ones who have come to
Yes.
welcome them.
Yes. There's a huge party going on the other side.
Yes. And they slip over there, and then they slip back, and we see that glimmer again of life, as we call it.
Right.
They are in that body again.
Yes.
And sometimes we see them reach out to somebody, or they say somebody's name that's died, that's in the spirit
looking
world.
Up in the corner, or they're looking up.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that's where they're moving between the worlds.
I agree.
And it's very special. And I often tell families that this is holy ground. This is the holiest place you're going to be standing until it's your time to make that transition. And it
100%.
is amazing. And I think you've talked about it crackling with life, and maybe you want to just say that, but I remember that term that you've used about it crackling with life.
Yeah.
And yeah.
I've got goosebumps just thinking about it.
Yeah, me too.
And this goes with, there's times when I'm doing readings where I have a loved one who either was doing like what you're talking about, it's a dying process. So, and really what you're talking about to me is physics.
Yeah.
Science can explain a lot of this stuff. But I once heard in one of my readings, and this is with people, I'll have this with people who have dementia, Alzheimer's, or who are just like you're talking about, going and then coming back and going and coming back. I heard it as I'm here and there, here and there.
Right.
And so when I hear here and there, that's telling me this person either had dementia, Alzheimer's, or there was a lingering passing and it wasn't, sudden.
Right.
And I love that, because that, when I relay that to you, then you'll understand, that they have one foot in this world and one foot in the other. And that can be with dementia, Alzheimer's,
Right. Well, that came through in the reading that you did with me, where my sister came through.
That's right.
And she talked about being here and there. And I believe, and she had dementia. And there were many times where you could see the essence of her, her graciousness, whatever. And then there were times where it was a blank, like there was
Right.
nothing there.
Right.
And I really do believe she was here and there and here and there in that time of dementia.
Right.
And somehow that, for me, because it was my sister, it makes it easier to look at that dementia time, because it's not like she was just laying there not doing anything,
Right.
or caught, or
Right.
it takes away the scariness of dementia, that there's some movement back and forth.
Right.
And I don't know, in many ways I don't know how to describe that, but
Well, what just popped into my head was that their souls aren't confined
yeah,
100% of the
way to
time,
put it.
in this body that's not really working much anymore.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. They're not,
They have a bit of freedom.
frozen in that body.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and the other thing that came through that time about that, she said that sometimes she was out running in the fields. Sometimes she was watching her nieces and nephews and nieces and nephews.
Oh.
Um,
So she was out tootling around.
yeah, right. So she was enjoying things, even though all we saw was her body.
Right.
But her spirit was very alive. And I think that's something that we have to remember as we work with grief, loss, death, and dying, all of those things, and dementia.
Right.
All of that. And you and I see a lot of that.
Would you say that, like listening to you, I think it's fair to say, but would you agree that readings have influenced your work?
Oh my goodness, yes. Because, well, just like the person last night, I tried to give her the idea that she could talk to her dead family member, and that family member would hear her. And she just shut it off. She didn't hear that. Maybe down her road,
right,
she'll be able to remember that.
Yeah,
That
she
would
might
be
not
my
even remember
hope.
where it came from,
Right, but that thought may come to her that person is nearby, that spirit is nearby.
We can hope, right?
We can hope,
We
right?
can hope. I mean,
I think that's so special to see the things that remind me of who my dad was. We lived on a farm. He was a farmer. He was also a school teacher, but he was a farmer. And hawks were terribly important on the farm because they ate the mice that created havoc in a farmer's world. And so hawks were always important to him. And so when I see a hawk, I know that is my dad sending me love. And there's one time specifically where I was working with hospice, I was driving home, and there was a long road that I was driving on, and I spotted this hawk out of the corner of my eye, and I could watch it as I drove along, and it swooped on the wind currents, and it just sort of went back and forth along the road in front of me. And I knew my dad was
leading the way.
I love you, I love you, I love you. And that was just so special. So there's different things that remind me that my family, who are now just in the spirit realm, are with me. Sometimes I feel my sister right beside me walking down the hall in the hospital. She was a nurse, a well-known nurse, and taught nursing. And she's right there with me, walking through the work that I do. And she's joyful about what I do.
Yeah. You know,
So-
we just did a, well, my Eric and I did a 5-minute video on ADCs. And really all we were doing was just, I got a new camera and we were testing the camera. And so we're joking around and, you know, and then we watched it and we're like, okay, we'll keep it. But a lot of like what we're talking about right now is an ADC, is an after death communication. And, you know, just the little nuggets that we get that are reminders that they're not some far away place. They are still with us.
Right.
You know, okay. So, Mother's Day, we just had Mother's Day. Well, Eric and I go to the grocery store, and for me, I'll find pennies, you know, I'll find other little things, but not a lot, you know, but every now and again.
Yeah.
But we are at the grocery store and we're paying, and I don't know why, but I looked down, and when I looked down, there was a dime. And dimes are supposed to be really special if you find a dime. So I went, oh my God, I found a dime. And I reach down and I grab it. And they always tell you, look at the year of the coin, because there's something important about that year. Well, so I look at it and I'm going, okay, I hope this is, you know, something special and not just like a coincidence. Yes, guys, even I think like that sometimes. So I look at the year and it was 2012. And my mom died May 1st, 2012. And the fact that I found a dime whose year was 2012 on Mother's Day brought a tear to my eyes. Yeah.
Yes. 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 Yes.
I was like, wow, that's really cool. And, you know, and I talk about this too, that they're not in physical form. So they've got to really work hard to make this stuff happen.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we can't just brush it aside and say, oh, it's just coincidence.
Right.
Slap in the face. What an insult.
Right. When they worked so hard to get it in front of us.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And
Yes.
imagine, like, we had to go to that exact register. I
Yeah.
had to be standing in that exact, you know, like all these things had to happen.
and you
Whoever
happened
dropped
to
the
look
dime
down.
before.
Yeah. Right. Right.
Yeah, it's pretty neat.
Right.
Pretty neat.
It's very special. Very special.
So what would be your favorite thing about any of our visits? Like, what would be like if somebody out there is considering going to a medium, would you encourage them to, and why?
Oh my goodness. Yes. Yes. Go, 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 go. Especially to Camille.
Shameless plug time.
But it has changed the way I look at life. It's changed the way I see death and dying. It has given me a confidence in what I'm supposed to do in this world is to help people die well.
Oh, I love that.
I don't often get the chance. I'm called after the person dies. It worked so much better when I was working with hospice because
we know.
we know a bit more about the timeline and so forth, and we're working towards that, and the person's much more ready to talk about such stuff.
Right.
But I have been able to say, this is what I am on this earth to do.
Yeah.
And this last year, when I had my annual review, it was the highest that I've ever had.
Congratulations.
And I believe it's a piece of knowing more through you about what death is and what the life, how life continues after death, after what we have called death. It's just a change into a
Transition.
different form.
Yeah.
It's a transition.
Yeah.
And it just, the work with you has been so good and so affirming for the work that I do. So I am
You're
very,
gonna make
very
me
grateful.
cry. Oh my goodness.
And I really do believe that you are one of my spiritual guides, one of the people that can help me understand my spirituality as well as the world that we live in and the spirit world. That's been phenomenal.
I love you too.
Yes, I love you.
You know, we were talking about how close heaven is, you know, the other side.
Mhm.
I happen to not believe in punishment on the other side. What's your take on that?
Well, I totally agree with that. I'm thinking a couple things. One is during a reading that you did with my husband, and somebody came through that had not treated him well,
Right.
and she apologized, and she said, I've had a lot of work to do since I've been here, something to that effect.
Right.
And her understanding of life has changed, and she could apologize. That says to me that if we do bad things in this world, that when we get to the other side, we're going to have some work to do. I don't think it's punishment,
I don't think so either.
but I think the blinders come off and we see what life is.
Mhm.
Maybe from her explanation, that's how I would guess. And so there's a person in my life who is pretty shitty. He lives pretty shitty. He treats other people very, very badly. Yells at them, calls them whatever. And I keep, as I walk, I go many days out for walks, and as I walk, it's been sort of my mission to say to him, if you don't rectify some of this stuff that you've done in this world, you're gonna face it. It's not gonna be punishment, but you're gonna have to work on it before you can enjoy that life of being
Right.
a free spirit, of being all of what the next world is all about.
Well, and I think there's a difference between punishment and accountability.
Yeah, I think that's a very
And
good way to
if
say it.
we're, you know, if we're shown, if we go through a life review, which is something I've heard many, 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 many times now, you go
Yeah.
through a life review and we see the impact that our actions had on other people.
Right.
I can
You
see
know.
being held accountable.
Yeah.
I mean, we have options, we have choices. And do I choose to be shitty to somebody, or am I going to be a nice person?
Right.
You know, are we going to abuse people, or are we going to extend kindness? And
Right.
I mean, to me, it's all about kindness. And that's not to say I don't have a bad day here.
Right.
But I don't try
Or-
to treat other people badly.
Right.
You know?
Right.
It just happens naturally. No, I'm kidding. Myself up.
Right.
I do believe in accountability.
Yeah, and I think that's probably what will happen rather than punishment.
Yeah.
I firmly believe that God is a loving God. God is love, and I that's what I perpetuate in my ministry to other people. And sometimes I've had the occasion where someone is dying. This happened in hospice, where the person is dying and they've done some really, really, really bad things in their life, and they're scared about meeting God.
Yeah.
And
Oh, well, newsflash, God's been with you the whole time.
exactly,
Sorry.
exactly. Right. Yeah. So one of the things that I believe that I can do, and some people would probably say I'm going to hell for this, is that
There is no hell.
I know. I know, I agree. But that I can impart God's grace to someone who has done dastardly things,
Right.
evil things, and just impart God's love and grace to that person. And that is worth so much as they prepare to die. And, the guy that I talked to and did that with, he died so peacefully.
I was going to say you gave him a final gift.
Yeah. But I'm sure there would be people who would say, I don't have that right, but only God can do that. But I do believe that God works through me.
I was just going to say, we're also instruments of peace.
Right. And we're instruments of God's grace and love.
Yes.
And if God isn't so much, how can I say this? God works through us. So, yeah.
So I want to go where angels fear to tread.
Yes.
Because I'm sassy like that.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on people who cross themselves over? How, again, we're kind of from similar backgrounds. I was taught that if somebody commits suicide, that is the ultimate sin, and you will never be forgiven for that, and that person is going straight to hell.
Oh,
And
exactly. Yeah.
I have many times now, many readings, I have been able to say, no, your loved one, your mother, your son, whoever,
Right.
I want to hear what you have to say about this. We all know how I feel.
Well, I certainly don't believe in hell either, but I don't believe that that person is going to be punished at all for that. I think that person is going to be dearly loved by God in those moments as they transition.
Yeah.
And there will be people welcoming them, maybe like they never felt welcomed before.
Yeah. I just think they were just maybe a victim of the environment, that because you're not going to do that for the fun of it.
No.
And it might even be accidental, because I've talked to people who have crossed over and that was a total accident. They're like, you know what, I did something stupid. It was the one time I did something,
really stupid. Yeah.
But otherwise, we don't really support assisted death. So you have now situations where people are just in this inescapable hell for them. Right. That they're, that to me, they must have been in so much pain and so much suffering. And if we're watching our loved ones who, I don't know, but bone cancer comes to mind, if there's something that is just very painful way of dying, like, I mean, we euthanize our animals because we don't want them to suffer, but we can't help our humans,
Right.
but
Right.
boy, this video is going to get all the comments because I'm just going everywhere.
Yeah.
But I just think that in order for you to be at the end of that rope, you see absolutely positively no hope. You see nothing getting better. Your suffering is at its peak.
Right.
So what do you think happens to them when they pass?
I really would. I would think that they are embraced by God
Yeah.
and told how much they are loved. And it may be a new awakening to them, to their spirit, to know that God has been with them through all of it, crying right alongside them and in pain with them. I think that's the aha thing that will happen for them, and that it's going to be a good thing. I don't think it's going to be, there's not going to be punishment.
No,
I don't believe in punishment at
no.
as people cross over. I think accountability is the word that you used, and I think that's
Yeah.
true. I would really agree with that.
I think it's all love on the other side. I mean, when I'm sitting with mothers,
Uh-huh.
who have lost their children to suicide. And honestly, there's other ways to attribute it, um, but there's no,
Yeah.
no, they're not going to hell. Your children, whether they were a child or a teenager or a grown up, if they crossed themselves over, then you're going to see them again,
Right.
and they're
Yeah, and
better off right now than you are.
I think we have to impart to the parent in this situation, the parent or the ones still here,
Right.
the grace of all of that. And it's one of the things that I hate about religion is that there are these rules that
Rules.
cannot be broken, and if you do, you're damned and going to hell, period. And I don't agree with that. I don't believe that anymore. One of the things that came through with the first reading that you did with me was you talked about this little girl, and we were at a school and we were at a church, and I was trying desperately hard to figure out who in the world this was, but come to realize that it was a little girl that I grew up with in the same church.
Oh my gosh.
And she wanted to talk to me because she wanted to thank me for being her friend when nobody else was her friend. And I had no clue that I was her only friend or how much that meant to her.
Yeah.
And, those are the pieces that then, because I know that about her, it makes me pay attention to relationships. And I may think, oh, I don't really matter to that person, and
We have no
pay
idea.
attention. Pay
Yeah.
attention.
Yeah. You have no idea how far your
have no
kindness can
idea.
go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so there's another thing, another plug. It is so important to talk with a medium, and especially Camille, and have a reading and understand a bit more about what the spirit world is about. Another one that comes quickly to mind is you talked about you wished I could see behind me that there was this long line of people. Do you remember that? Do you want to tell that?
So this happens every now and again. And it's usually with people that are like nurses, social workers, chaplains, and it's so when I think this is the first time I saw it was with you. Sometimes people come to me, like physical people, like Karen, come to me, and when we get going, I become overwhelmed because I see, like with Karen, I saw people in line. There was a line that went out the door for people that were lining up to tell her thank you for the work or for the kindness that she showed. And this does not happen with everybody. But for you, it was a line as far as I could see.
And that's so humbling, but it's also, it helps me it gives me pause, but it also gives me a sense that the work that I do is terribly important. And it values, it puts a value on what I do in a way that I never saw that before. And so
imagine
again,
you might be going through your day going, well, it's a crappy day, and I am not having fun, and I forgot my lunch at home, and meanwhile, you have this line of people that just want to show you love and say thank you. I mean, so, and that's, you guys, we don't have to be chaplains, to have this happen, but just not too long ago, I did a reading for a couple, and I think I've talked about this before, but it was the strangest thing. I got a veteran who came through, and it turns out he was MIA. He was POW MIA from Vietnam. And I'm describing, everything about him. And the couple's sitting there going, well, I don't know. This doesn't make any sense. And then I like literally am giving them, and I don't always get dates, but this one came through like clearly. So it turns out that when she was 12 years old, she ordered a POW MIA bracelet. She's 12. And this man, Major DeSoto, came through just to say thank you. He started the whole reading. Like he was the first person to come through. And I'm sitting there going, okay, I'm really not doing well right now, because they were not confirming any of the information I'm giving them. And I'm like, he is military. He's a pilot. This is aviation. I know he's in a plane. I can see it. I'm like describing the plane. I'm talking about like,
and they're like, I
don't know, Camille, and I'm like, oh my gosh. So I'm telling him, I'm like, dude, you've got to give me more. You've got to give me something else. Well, imagine he couldn't give me a whole lot that they could confirm until I said, this is, I believe he was KIA. I mean, he showed me, and then he told me he was gone before he hit he and his navigator, his rear. I don't know what happened, but I know that the plane exploded and they were gone before they hit the ground. Yeah. So, saying things like that. But when I'm just trying to push through and I gave his date of passing, then all of a sudden she goes, the only person I can think of would be Major DeSoto. And I was like, okay, who's that? And then she said, I ordered a bracelet. She's 10 or 12 years old. And the minute that she said that, I got this rush of goosebumps. And which to me, I call them angel bumps, because I know that that's truth. Right then and there, no doubt in my mind,
Yeah.
absolutely no doubt in
Yeah.
my mind that was him. And I said, he just wanted to say thank you. And then to be able to literally Googled his name afterwards. And I text them and I said that, it's right here. And I sent them the link and I said, here he is. He's listed under POWMIA, his date of death. And I'm like, you can't make that stuff up. But I think, to me, this comes back to love. It's all love, right? And gratitude is an expression of love.
Definitely.
Kindness is an expression of love.
Definitely. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the gratitude from other people that have moved into the spirit world, that's pretty astounding. And it helps us live our lives today in this world.
It helps heal grief,
It does. It does. And there's so many things written about how to do grief. And I've read an awful lot about
I bet
that.
you
Heard a lot about that. But I think this has changed my perception of grief and grieving in a way that nothing else has. And I took a class in seminary that was called Grief, Loss, Death, and Dying. And we faced many things about grief and stories about grieving and dying.
right.
And that professor said, until you face your own death, you can't help somebody else face their death or their loved one's death. And I believe that what's happened when I've been with you, when you're doing a reading, is that helps me to face my death, because I know it's holy ground. I now know so much more about what happens on the other side, and I can help people get there too. But I don't think it's a new face on what grief is. I don't think it's the sad, ongoing sadness that some people have. And I'm trying to figure out, there's a couple friends of mine who are in that horrible sadness that goes on forever and ever and ever.
That just feels hopeless to me.
Yeah. How can I talk about what I understand now without offending them and their religious upbringing that is similar to mine, heaven and hell, and grief goes on forever.
That's such a tough one.
Yeah.
Because I'm just hearing go ahead and offend them.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
I think what we're doing is giving little nuggets of hope. And
I think you're right.
And little nuggets of healing. And, people can say that I found that dime that day that has 2012 on it, and that's just a coincidence. They can say that all they want. But guarantee you that there is some part of each of us who's lost somebody that we love so deeply, that we do want to connect still somehow. And that does exist. And it's not just that we want it so bad we make it happen. No. It's that it's all about, to me, it's all about healing. It's all about hope. It's all about kindness. It's all about love. God is love. It's just all about every single little thing that we can do. Even if you feel like you might offend them, to me, that is just one more way of you saying, I love you. Here is some love for you. Here is a
Yeah.
nugget of love for you. And maybe
Yeah.
that is God expressing itself through you, through kindness, through, well, did you find any pennies today? You know, like, did you see a hummingbird? You know, is there a dragonfly? Is there a cardinal? Is there
Right. Right. Or ladybugs.
ladybugs,
Yeah.
daisies? I had a lady that I was reading, and I said, I don't know. And her brother was coming through, and I was sitting there going, there are daisies all around you. I don't know why, but I'm seeing daisies all around you. And she's like, oh. And I go, nope, I'm telling you, daisies mean something, because there are daisies all around you. Like literally there are daisies around you. I'm seeing this. And she goes, oh, I don't know. And I'm like, okay. So I, in these cases, I go, I'll wait for it, you know?
Yeah.
And yeah, so the next day I get a text.
I know what the daisies are.
And so this was the thing, the wall where she's sitting by a window. Guess what was right outside the window in the yard? Is
Daisies.
this huge daisy bush? Is this huge patch of daisies?
Yeah.
She forgot all about it. Plum forgot.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I've never, one, I had never met her. Two,
Yeah.
never been to her house because
Yeah.
she's like way north and I'm not. And yeah, it was
Yeah.
really funny. And I'm like, you can't make this stuff up.
Right.
This is
Right.
your brother.
Yeah. Well, speaking of brothers, you, during that first reading that we did, my brother came through and he had died 25 years ago. And I had been out to visit him and we thought he was getting better. And my sister and I went out and we came home, and about a half hour, I was in our house, and about a half hour had passed and I got the call that he had died. And in the reading, he said, I want you to know that I was with you when you got that phone call.
Oh, I got goosebumps.
And I, that has just been so special because he was a very special brother to me. Took care of me when I was little, and he was a little bit older. But
He was just so protective of you. I can still feel it right now. I can feel this protection around you.
Yeah. And that means so much as I think of him now. I don't have anything specific like daisies or to remind me of him, but I still feel his love and his protection.
The next time you see
By that reading.
Yeah. And like, I don't know how many readings I've done, but I generally do not remember, because I'm not using my conscious brain,
Right.
they call it an altered state of consciousness, which
Right.
I'm not getting high, people.
Right. Well, in a way you are.
I'm in heaven.
Yeah.
But I'm, so I'm using this other part of my brain or whatever. So I rarely remember readings afterwards, but I do. There are moments like that where I get goosebumps and I'm like, oh, that's right, I remember this, and
Yeah.
so special.
Yeah.
It's so special.
So very special.
Speaking of religion, we worked with a nurse, and I know that she's fairly religious, and she friend requested me on Facebook one day, and I was like, oh God. And I was like, she's gonna see that I'm a medium, and because I talk on Facebook, about and really the only people that I'm friends with on Facebook are people that I'm actually friends with. But so my circle is very small because I protect myself.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh God, I love her. I loved her, but I thought she's gonna hate me, and
Yeah. Yeah.
there goes that friendship. But so I sat on it for a little bit, and then I finally was like, okay, so I accepted the friend request because she's just lovely. I love her.
Yeah.
And one day at work, she goes, Camille, I want to talk to you about your work that you do, that I'm seeing about on Facebook. And I go, oh God.
I'm in trouble.
So I said, okay. And I said, are we still friends? And she goes, what? And I said, well, the work that I do can be against some people's religion. And
Yeah.
I can be very harshly judged. And she looked at me and she goes, "Wow, and I said, oh, you'd be surprised, Yeah. But she has lost somebody very dear to her. And she said, no. And I said, I don't want you to think that this is evil or, awful, or I'm dabbling on the dark side. And, and she looked at me like I lost my marbles. And she goes, Camille, she's like, nothing about you is dark or creepy.
Right.
And then she told me something that I'll never forget. And she said, you're the only person in the world that I would trust to do this.
Mhm. Mhm.
And she has lost a child. And that's very sacred to me. And for her and her background to say that I was the only person in the world that she would trust to do this just melted my heart, and those are the things. And like what you have said, these are the things that keep me going,
Right.
and let me know that I'm with the flow. I'm doing what I'm supposed to be doing. I have, accepted and embraced this mission that I've been given. And it's forward march.
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
So, and Karen is living proof that you don't have to be somebody military for me to read.
Right.
I mean, I'm known as a military medium, but that's because my whole background, all my life, I've been military support, military family.
Right.
A lot of aviation and a lot of Marine Corps, but I've got every branch of service in my family. So it makes sense. I mean, I'm able to bring through POWs and MIAs.
Right. And I think your ability, because of your background, working with the military and people in your loved ones working in the military, I think that's a phenomenal, rich background to pull forward as you do these readings with people. I'm sure that means a lot to those who are in the military or are connected to the military.
And and it's not everyone who's in the military has seen combat.
True.
Many military service members have not seen combat.
Never.
But they may have lost a parent or a child or a cousin or a best friend.
Right.
Or a fellow Marine or, fellow soldier, airman, sailor, Coast Guard. So I am here to draw on this huge book of knowledge that I've been given.
Right.
The life that I've been given, that I've led. So I'm here to minister to that. And remember, were you still in hospice? Anytime there was a service member who came in, they would come and get me. And they're like, Camille, there's a veteran. We have a veteran on the unit. And I'm like, Roger that, let's go. You know, and that was special.
Yeah.
But it's still as special today, you know, meeting with veterans and I'm a writer. I mean, I wrote The Hounds of Hell, and I've got The Hounds of Hell posted on my website. And The Hounds of Hell has been, well, it was in DC, it was read on air, it was in the Smithsonian. Side note.
Yeah.
But I like that's a joy for me.
Right.
So you're on the right path, right? If you're doing the work that brings you joy.
Right. Right.
Because it's all about love.
That's right. It is.
Any parting shots that you or in the Marine Corps, they would say any saved rounds that you got for us?
I really can't think of anything. I think we've covered the whole the gambit today. I'm sure I'll think of things as the day goes on after this, but this has been delightful. It's been so much fun. I knew it would be.
I knew it would be.
And I was scared to
so
death.
Excited. I was like, we've got to get Karen on here because this one's going to be good. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
This has done my heart good, and
mine as well.
You know, imagine the people that we are helping heal when we're telling them that heaven is only 3 feet away, when we're telling them that their loved one who crossed themselves over is not sentenced to a life of hell. You know?
Right. Right.
And then it's all love. And
right.
Oh, so have you ever studied A Course in Miracles? Well, I just dropped something in your lap. A Course in Miracles. So I pull a little card every day. It gives me a little quote from the Course in Miracles. And the one today, you guys, you cannot make this stuff up, says, heaven is here. There is nowhere else. Heaven is now. There is no other time.
Oh my goodness.
I got goosebumps again. There's no such thing as coincidence.
No, there's not.
Heaven is here. I was like, whoop.
Heaven is here.
And I pulled it right before we met. So.
Perfect. Perfect ending.
Thank you to all my friends who have watched this, all 5 or 6 of you.
We need to increase that.
Yeah, come on, give us a like. I hope you guys have enjoyed our talk today. My beloved friend, Karen Weldy, chaplain extraordinaire. I appreciate your time.
Thank you.
We'll see you guys.